Hey everybody. Like Jesse was saying, my name's Javi and I work at Airbnb. That's a picture of me in the park. Another fun fact about me, I have a small dog named Zoe. That's a picture of her saying hi to everybody. And I'm a software engineer. What that means a little bit is software engineering is more of a collaborative sport than you would think. So uh, it's not unusual to take someone else's code and kind of make it your own. So a little bit more about my job history. Like again, this session is mostly to answer your questions about almost anything. Uh, Things I've done in the past. I learned I first learned how to program around when I was your age. It was a very different time. The internet was very small, but still, at your age, it's a great time to start learning. Then I went to MIT for a while, and after that, I worked at a gaming company. I worked on a Cityville. It's a little bit like SimCity or Farmville, or if you've ever played any of those games where you build a little city and kind of collect items. I worked on that for a while. And the game itself was pretty successful. I think they said at the time it was the biggest virtual city in the world or something like that with 24 million people a day. Well, if you haven't been to an Airbnb, I'm going to hopefully give you a reason to join or to visit one. Because if you aren't aware already, Airbnb helps people find a place to stay when they're on vacation. A lot of people say it's like, oh, why don't you just use a hotel? And it's like, well, hotels are great, but they all kind of look alike. A hotel in Paris looks like a hotel in New York, even though they're two very different cities. With an Airbnb, you can have a more rustic hotel, like if you're out in the woods, or if you're in Spain, you can go to this place that has glass ceilings. And while you're there, you can even do other things that Airbnb helps you do. You can find a kayak with a corgi on it to go, canoeing in the local river. This is some of the things Airbnb does that's a little bit different than a normal hotel. And people have gotten really excited about it. And because people have gotten so excited, the company has grown quite a bit. And now at this point, um, there are millions of listings on there. Before I move forward too much, does anyone remember what the B and B in Airbnb stands for? Or does anyone have a good guess? Yeah, it's not obvious. This one's kind of lost in time. Oh, Zoe, good one. Bed and breakfast. That's right. Back maybe 20, 30 years ago, there was this idea of like a going to a bed and breakfast when you go to a small town and you want to stay somewhere. It's like there's no hotels in these small towns, so you find just a place to sleep, a bed, and a place to have breakfast. Thus, you would find an Airbnb. The air stands for air mattress. It was kind of like Airbnb had very humble beginnings. We couldn't guarantee that you would have a great bed, but we would definitely guarantee you at least had an air mattress. So that's kind of where the name came from. And like I mentioned before, Airbnb has grown quite a bit since then. There's over 5.5 million places to stay. Um, a wide variety of places. Some rustics, some are super luxury. I saw some people saying like, I want to stay at a $1 billion place. There are no $1 billion places, but there are definitely $10 million places, and those places are on Airbnb. Some of those places are castles. Any idea of how many of Airbnbs are actually castles? 10%, 500,000 castles. 1-0. It's a great. I've seen no. The answers are all over the place. Everywhere from 0 to 1 million. Well, there aren't a million, but there are 3,500. That's quite a few castles, way more than I was expecting. Any idea of how many igloos? I love these numbers. That's right, you can stay at an igloo on an Airbnb. There's only 140, but if you act quickly, you can definitely book one before, the summer comes. And what's great, they're only $150 a night. Who would have thought? Um, these castles, though, I actually looked them up. They're quite a bit more expensive. Usually, one family doesn't get a castle. Usually, it's a group of people. Maybe 20 people get a castle because castles are huge, and you want to split it. Um, the final thing about Airbnb that's worth mentioning is headquartered in San Francisco. This is a picture of it. They're a very design-focused company. At this point, Airbnb has around 4,000 employees and 150 engineers. That seems like a lot of employees, and you might be asking what they do. Well, the best way to show what they do is by a quick demo. The thing about this demo, though, is like it's one thing to show a website, but it gets kind of boring if you don't get to explore yourself. I just saw a question about how much a castle costs per night. A couple of $1,000s per night. These are really great castles, though. So I'm about to show a quick demo of the Airbnb website. I know it can be kind of boring if you're not like getting to click around, but like while you're watching me do it, I want you to keep track of a couple of things. I want you to keep track of all the features you see. A feature is anything that moves on the website or anything that gives you information. I also want you to keep, for those who've coded before, I want you to start imagining how code might be used on the website in different ways. And finally, at any point, feel free to ask a question in the chat. All right? I'm going to be asking for that list of features afterwards, though, so make sure you're taking a couple of notes. All right. Here is Airbnb.com. There's all sorts of things we can click into. So like if I have, so right now I'm actually in Texas. So you might see, if you're also from Texas, some of these places might look familiar. So I just clicked on Canyon Lake. This is a cool lake nearby. And I can kind of see it's like, oh, there's a place for $68. What does that place look like? Oh, I just clicked on it, something popped up. I can like look at the different pictures. It's very rustic, very charming. I can click through it, look at all these pictures. So one thing that Airbnb always prides itself about is how nice its pictures are. These pictures are often taken by like professional photographers. So even though Airbnb definitely is a software company, they want all aspects to be high quality. Oh, cool. If you stay there, you might even get to see the deer, which is great. So I'm gonna go ahead and close this. Some other things that are kind of cool about it, you can see how many people are allowed to stay. And what's cool is that this is actually someone's house. Someone actually lives there, and you can actually get to know that the person who lives there a little bit, right? So their name is Scotty. They're a super host, which means they're really, really good at hosting. You'll have a great time if you stay there. And you can then read reviews about other people. So yeah. So this is like me just kind of clicking around. In addition to that, you can kind of search. So I saw some places that people wanted to visit earlier. Can someone give me a place in, let's say, Germany that's worth visiting? I see Berlin, the capital of Berlin. All right. Well, the Czech Republic, not quite in Germany, but it is nearby. Kiev is a good one. Actually, let's try Kiev. It's Hamburg, Germany. Let's see what's there. I've never actually been there, so it'd be kind of cool to find there. Then I get to pick what dates, and let's say I'm flexible. I'm down for whatever. Let's stay there for a month in July. Let's see what's around. It'll just be one adult for now. Sorry. And then I can go ahead and click search, and I can see what's in Hamburg, Germany. Well, if I want to stay there for a month, here are all of my options. Well, this place looks great. Let's say I am confident I want to reserve it. I go ahead and click that reserve button, and this is where I'm going to go ahead and stop the demo because I don't necessarily want to spend $2,000 on a place in Germany at this point. Even though Diana is probably a great person, I'm going to hold off on this purchase. So at this point, I can go ahead and write her a friendly note like, hello, your place looks amazing. And then I could request a book. What's another nice thing we can say to Diana? Because we're about to stay in her house, so we want to be really polite. How are you? That's a great question. How are you? Your house looks amazing. Yeah. So I'm not actually going to send this message because I'm not planning to book it, and it would be a little rude to pretend to do something that to say I'm going to do something I'm not actually planning to do. So hopefully this gives you a rough idea of how Airbnb works as a website. So while going through this, we saw all sorts of features. We saw all sorts of weird and interesting behaviors of the website. That's right, I might have mistyped something. Um, so once we've done that, I want you to go ahead and help me put together a list of features you saw. Go ahead and start typing them in the chat. I'll record them here. Search is a good one. Maybe some AI, messages, pictures, maps, a calendar, hyperlinks. That's right, you can scroll through it. Payments, I saw payments as well. This is really good, guys. Credit card. Buttons, yeah, it's a very basic feature, but also extremely important. Ratings, costs, oops, slash prices, descriptions, the number of people. I can't believe we haven't written reviews yet, but yes, reviews are very important. It's like the backbone. Like, how do you know if a place is good to stay if you don't have reviews? We didn't see any castles, but yes, I guess castles in a way is a feature. It's more like the content, being able to log in and log out, locations and accounts, host info, very good. We got to know their names, how long they've been on Airbnb. Some security features. That's a good one. That's let's see. We haven't talked about the cloud yet, but we didn't see any Java yet. But like you're reading my mind, there's a bunch of Java running about this. Help buttons. I'm loving these suggestions. Awesome. Well, thank you. Well, this is a very good list. So yes, a button to make reservations as well. So we'll be talking about specific languages in a little bit. Well, thank you for all those suggestions. And I tried to write down a couple. You guys got a lot more than I did. Like I didn't even think of half the things you thought of. One thing I want you to keep in mind though is like a lot of these features were visual. There were a lot of things we didn't see. Even some of the ones you didn't see, we started talking about. Like first of all, I showed you a website. There's obviously going to be a mobile app and an iOS app. If I had sent a message to that host, Diana, she would have received an email with my message, and she would have emailed me back also. There's also customer support in case something goes wrong, like if there's a bug or something happens to my credit card. That all is happening in the background. You guys got this one, payments, but there's some complications around payments. It's because the world's a complicated place. There's lots of currencies out there, and there's lots of different credit cards, and getting them all straight is not an easy thing to do. So just accepting a credit card number isn't enough. Also, I saw one person, at least one person, say security, and that is a really, really good call out because for both people. So Diana, I'm trusting they're a nice person, but how do I know for sure? Similarly, Diana is going to let me in their house and let me stay for a whole month. How do they know I'm a good person? This is one of the core things that Airbnb has to deal with. Um, for example, this is a picture of a Romanian passport. Is it a valid Romanian passport or is it counterfeit? How can we possibly tell? It's a fake? Oh, Brian's saying AI. Yeah, AI is definitely playing a big part of it. Actually, AI is also playing the opposite side. AI is making it easier to make fake documents. For example, have you all ever heard of deep fakes? So deep fake is where it's like you put like a celebrity's face on another person's face and you make it look like they're saying something they're not really saying. People, if you saw The Mandalorian, at the very end, you saw Luke Skywalker come out. Luke Skywalker, at this point, he's in his 70s, but in the TV show, he looked like he was in his 30s. That was a deep fake they were doing. They made basically a virtual character. So AI is making it really easy to make fake faces. Like this picture of this woman right here, it's probably a real person, or it could be something, a piece of AI made up at some point. This is the challenge that Airbnb does, and we put a whole bunch of resources in figuring it out. But even then, there's very basic things that looking at this passport we should figure out. Like, unfortunately, I can't read Romanian very well, but I believe this is a date, the 27th of December. I'm guessing this is 2016. So this passport, even if it's valid, is expired, so we can no longer accept it. And being able to automate that is a huge part of it. Because again, there are millions of places to stay, and there's tens of millions of people trying to stay at these places. So we have to use a lot of AI to make sure things are good. Another place we're using AI is to make sure things are real. It's like, yeah, you can say it's a castle, but how do we know it's a castle? Well, one way we can know it's a castle is that, yeah, we can call the police. But sometimes the police don't like to get bothered like that. An easier way is to use like a cell phone. And once you have a cell phone, you can turn on the camera and say, it's like, send me a video of your castle and walk around. And it's much, much harder to fake a video of a castle. And even while you're walking around, our AI can automatically highlight places like, okay, yeah, there's the fireplace. There's the couch. There's the living room, you said. Yeah, we could also, in some cases, we do hire people to actually go to these places ourselves and check it out. Unfortunately, the FBI does not want to help us out in making sure these places are good, but it's a good suggestion. I guess if we get big enough, the FBI might help us out. And this is all part of fraud detection that's happening in the back end. So all the stuff that you're not seeing, that you don't see right off the bat, is using something called back-end coding. To contrast back-end coding is I want to compare it to front-end coding. Front-end coding is something that you see on your computer or on your phone. Like that website we saw, that's all front-end coding. The phone app you see is all front-end coding. Back-end coding is running on someone else's computers. I put servers here, but I really should have put computers. So in other words, there's the website that's being shown on your computer, but there's a bunch of code that's running on Airbnb computers that you don't have access to. And to give you like a taste, that's a really good call out. Someone put in the chat that a lot of front end coding is done with HTML and CSS and JavaScript as well. If you're not super familiar with those languages, that's okay. But just keep in mind that HTML and CSS are kind of every time you go to a website, you're seeing a bunch of HTML and CSS being run all the time. Backend can be all sorts of things. It can be JavaScript, Java, or Python. I'm seeing a couple of those suggestions in the chat, and that's 100% true. At Airbnb specifically, we use a lot of Java. We also use a programming language called Ruby and Ruby on Rails. It's a very good language. It's kind of, it's very, very flexible, which can be a good and bad thing. So Ruby is a programming language. It's a little, in some ways, it's similar to Java, but in other ways, it's very, very different. Um, yeah, and I'm seeing some people practice their HTML in the chat, which is also really good. And someone suggested, is there a is there C++ code? There is, but very, very little bit of C++ code. Um, to give you a taste of how all that HTML and CSS talks to the backend code, I'm going to display a little bit of a diagram. So you have your Android apps, your iOS apps, and your Chromes, and there's this thing called a load balancer. A load balancer is a very special computer that only talks to websites and mobile devices. So when you do something on your mobile device, it's going to ask an Airbnb computer. And the Airbnb computer that it's asking is called a load balancer. This load balancer sends to a whole bunch of computers, like a lot of computers. And all these computers are doing different things. Some of them are sending emails. Some of them are doing AI things, making sure that Romanian passport is correct, or there's no funny business going on. Some of them are actually talking to the Romanian government, because one way we can make sure this passport is correct is by just asking the Romanian government, like, hey, someone just said this was a passport. Could you verify it for me? And sometimes they say yes or no, and they help us out. And of course, there's a whole bunch of stuff making sure that payments are going correctly, making sure currencies are being converted correctly, and um, hosts are being paid. One thing I forgot to mention, Diana, that we were from Germany, um, those $2,000 that I would have paid would be going to her, not to Airbnb. They would be going to Airbnb, and then Airbnb would have to give them to Diana. And making sure that all happens, because if anything goes wrong with those $2,000, a lot of people are going to be upset. So making sure that all goes according to plan is very, very important. Cool. Are there any questions about anything so far? Let me know. Type in the chat. Yeah. Also, if they have that, those $2,000 are there. How's Airbnb going to profit though? So Airbnb takes a small percentage of that $2,000, and those $2,000, I'm forgetting the exact percentage, is it's kind of like a founder's fee. It's saying thank you Airbnb for helping me beat Diana. In some ways, you can describe it as a tax, but it's also a service that we're trying to provide. Did I ever fake a passport? No, of course not. I'm a good kid. I'm good. Oh, Andreas, you're Romanian? That's awesome. I hope your passport's valid though. You can't fake Airbnb. You can't, try to trick Airbnb. It's no good. I am not a kid. That is very true. What is the currency with a W and P? I'm actually not sure. If anyone knows, actually type it in the chat. Oh, did I ever personally find a fake passport? No, but I've been shown examples of it, and they're pretty good. Like even with Photoshop, you can do some pretty impressive things. Like they look good to a human, but a computer can actually tell the difference. They can tell where you've copied and pasted and stuff. It's very impressive. Cool. Yeah, keep the questions coming. I'm gonna keep scrolling back to see if I missed any. Will Airbnb ever go on Shark Tank? No, I don't think so. Shark Tank's more for like really small companies. Um, Airbnb is a little too big for Shark Tank at this point. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, I work at Airbnb. So, oh, yeah, that's a great question. So Shark Tank is a TV show. I think it's on NBC. It's where founders go on says, hey, I thought of a new business and I want you to invest in my business. Could you please invest in my business? And they describe their business and they describe how it's going to be profitable and how many people are going to, um, really benefit from it. And if it's a good pitch, they get a little bit of investment money. How much do they earn annually? How much does Airbnb earn annually? That's a great question. So it earns, so If you calculate all the money people spend on Airbnb, that's in the tens of billions of dollars. From that, I think Airbnb, in terms of profit, makes hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't know off the top of my head, um, but all that's actually public information. Airbnb is actually a public company, so if you really want to, you can Google up Airbnb S1. I don't know what S1 stands for, security one, but all the information is now public if you're really interested. Why did I pick Romania as an example? Is because I thought I think Romania is a very common country with a lot of visitors, but not a lot of people are super familiar with those passports. Um, for example, if someone tried to fake a US passport or a Chinese passport or a UK passport, it would be very, very difficult because those are very common passports that a lot of people are very familiar with. Will Airbnb be the future for hotels and stay-in places? Well, some people think so. Definitely. I think Airbnb offers a lot more options. And it makes this trip more interesting. You know, it's like, again, like all hotels kind of look alike, but not all Airbnbs look alike. They're all very, very different. And you also make a personal connections. Like when you go to a new city, you don't really know anyone there. But in the case of Germany, at least we would know Diana there. Oh, someone Googled it. So $3.3 billion. That sounds about right for Airbnb. Does Airbnb have real estate agents? No. No. Um, Airbnb tries to be very minimal. It's like if you own the property, you can put the property on Airbnb. You don't need any middle managers in between. Yeah. Where do people stay when they're in their houses? Well, a lot of times they stay in the house. Sometimes people have an extra room in their house, and so you stay in their one room. Like a lot of people are retired and they have extra rooms when their kids move out, for example. Oh man, I'm not keeping up with these questions. I apologize if I missed any. Does Airbnb sell homes? No, they don't. I haven't visited Romania, unfortunately, either. Airbnb gets money by uh, taking a small percentage of the uh, payments every time you pay a host. Yeah, cool. I'm glad you guys have a bunch of questions about Airbnb. Um, yeah, so this is a little bit about how Airbnb's architecture is like. Like there's a clear front end and there's a clear back end. The back end does a lot of stuff. The front end also does a lot of stuff, but the back end does a lot of things you would not expect. All right. So I mentioned that the back end has a lot of computers, but any idea how many computers? I want you to go ahead and type in chat how many computers do you think there are? Do you think there's only 52 computers? Do you think there's only 407, 319? Let's see, C, B, D, C. No one's guessing A. I mean, computers are very powerful nowadays. Nice. Okay. I think I'm seeing B. B is a good guess. All right. Well, I hate to break it to you. I don't actually know. It's a little bit of a trick question, I'm afraid to say. I know the number's in here somewhere. It's probably more than 3,000, less than 60,000. But the exact number, I don't know. The truth is that Airbnb doesn't actually own any computers. Like it owns this laptop that I'm working on right now, sure, but it doesn't actually own the computers that you talk to. It rents computers instead. It rents computers from Amazon. I'm sorry, Natalie. It was a little bit of a trick. It's a trick, so it's easier to remember. So it rents all these computers from Amazon, and the number of computers it's renting is constantly changing. One day it might be renting 3,000. The next day it might be renting 4,000. The next day after that, it might be renting 1,000. Why is it constantly changing the number of computers it's renting? Did COVID affect Airbnb? Yeah, it sure did affect Airbnb, and it did also change the number of computers we were renting at the time. Airbnb might go to other planets one day, but till then, we're going to be earthbound. Ah, I see load and demand. That's a great reason. Costs is also a great reason. All right, when no one goes there, that kind of makes sense. Like if Airbnb isn't as popular at one point, like during the winter, like January, February, not a lot of people are traveling, so Airbnb isn't as popular. So yeah, that might also affect the number of computers. So yeah, to make profit, to save money, very good. That's one reason. The other reason that's not so obvious is that because we're renting a computer, like I don't know if your parents or anyone you know has ever rented a car. One reason people rent cars is because they want the best car at all times. Owning a car makes it difficult to upgrade that car. Computers are very much the same way. If you own a computer, they become very difficult to change. But if you're renting a computer, you can say it's like, well, this computer is already 1 year old. I want a new computer. Isn't the CEO of AWS the CEO of Amazon? Technically, yes. So Amazon is kind of a complicated company. The word CEO can mean a lot of different things, unfortunately. Whoa, someone put a lot of W's. That's called spamming. It's not good. It's not good. It makes it hard to read the chat. What's your profit? I don't know Airbnb's profit off the top of my head, but it is public. Another reason we would want to start renting computers is because sometimes our needs change. Like sometimes um, those fake passports get really difficult. So we need smarter computers. We need more AI. And if we need more AI, it turns out there's very special computers that are really good at using AI, and we would rent more of those. And of course, security. If you own a computer, you're responsible for making sure no one breaks into it. But we don't own the computers. Amazon owns the computers, so they can go ahead and make sure that security is done. And I think someone already mentioned scalability uh, before, which is great. How much do you get paid on average? Oh, what is the average booking? I think the average host per year makes a couple $100, like $800 a year from Airbnb, but I don't know how many of those, like the average booking. Um, so this whole idea of renting computers is called cloud computing. And cloud computing is kind of changing everything right now. I'm going to go ahead and play this quick video. I'm going to make sure my sound is shared. All right, I'm going to go ahead and press play for this video.
So imagine you have a dog, and your dog's name is Frank. It's a strange dog name, but just go with it. You and Frank are best pals. You go on walks together, Frank always walks faster, but still, you really love Frank a lot. You only have one photo of Frank, though, this goofy shot of Frank at his birthday party, drooling on the cake. And because you love this weirdly named dog so much, you're worried you might lose this photo. So you upload the photo, your favorite photo, to one of your favorite photo websites, like Flickr, Facebook, or Picasa. And without realizing it, you just started cloud computing. But what does that mean? When you put Frank's photo online, you could picture a giant cloud coming down to vacuum up this photo off your laptop. Then the photo of Frank, birthday hat and all, lives up in the cloud until you need to look at it again. You log on to Flickr or Facebook, and there's Frank. You can see him from wherever you want, from home, from work, even on your phone, in case you start missing Frank during your lunch break. At first, the cloud seems like magic, but it's not. The photo of Frank isn't flying around in the sky. Frank's photo actually lives in a secret warehouse full of computers. These warehouses are called data centers, or server farms, and they're popping up all over the world, just like crops. Inside one of the computer warehouses, there are rows and rows of refrigerator-sized computer towers that are way more powerful than your home computer. It's hard to know exactly where your photo of Frank may be once it's in the cloud. That's because it may be in a dozen of these warehouses all at once. Frank may be chilling in Paris or hanging out in India. There's really no way to know for sure. You just have to trust a web company, like Google or Microsoft, to keep Frank safe. There are a bunch of reasons to do this. The first is that, well, you only have one photo of Frank. It's on your laptop, and if that laptop breaks, if an alien comes to steal the data, or if your apartment melts when a volcano erupts, you're out of luck. No more Frank, no more memories. But when Frank's in the cloud, he's stored not just in one place, but all over the place. So you're less likely to lose him. You also can access Frank's photo from anywhere. You can send a link to some of your friends, so they can see Frank too. That's just one of the many powers of cloud computing. And it's not just you and Frank. Entire businesses are running in the cloud. There are plenty of reasons to be scared of the cloud too. But for now, you decide to trust the cloud as backup. If Frank's happy, then you're happy.
Yeah, and Frank is a good dog, so hopefully he's happy. Yeah, so I saw in the chat that Google has a bunch of data centers, and that's right. If you ever see these data centers, are incredible. They're some of the most secure places in the world, like in some ways more secure than the White House. And they have thousands of computers, and they're like these buildings are bigger than football fields, and there's two people in them because that's all it takes to run all these computers. And they even have their own little power plants right next to it. They're like amazing feats of engineering. Um, but the main idea around cloud computing is that most of programs, if you've ever programmed before, my guess is that your program ran on your computer and only your computer. But when you start doing things in the cloud, the programs you're writing are running on thousands of computers potentially. Um, and without the cloud, the internet just simply wouldn't exist nowadays. Yeah. All right. I think we're coming close to time, so I'm going to go ahead and skip this. The one thing about the internet to also keep in mind is that these data centers are all over the world. And to be able to communicate with them effectively, you need to use this pattern called the request response pattern. What's cool is that my computer is sending a request across the whole world to a data center, and that data center is sending a request all the way back. And that one request is traveling, potentially thousands of miles in less than a second. And there's a physical piece of wire that's connecting my computer to that computer. Unless you're, on wireless, then of course there's no wires. But like if you're plugged in with an Ethernet, there's a physical piece of copper that's connecting you and that data center. It's taken 100 years to make sure all those wires are set up correctly, but they are nowadays. So I just saw a question pop up in chat. Do you think in the future Airbnb could expand to other planets? Definitely, definitely. In 1,000 years, Airbnb will be on other planets. Can you stay underground? Actually, yes. There's definitely basements available. Uh, I don't know about underwater though. There might be a place. If there's vandalism in the property, will Airbnb cover it, or will there be a policy? Oops, it just scrolled back. That the renter would sign to take responsibility. Airbnb will cover it. Airbnb will cover up to, I think, at least $1 million in damages, if not more. So yeah, Airbnb tries to be very responsible. It wants to make sure everyone's having a good time. And that's why I make sure that people are valid, and make sure places are valid, and all that stuff. All right. So cloud computing is pretty cool. So I want to actually go ahead and send this link to everybody because I think there's a cool example of cloud computing. Never done this before. So I'm going to send a link in chat. Hopefully everyone can get it. And this is a, go ahead and open it up. And so this is a basic app, and I can already see people starting to draw on it. What's cool is that this picture is kind of shared across everybody. Can a host get kicked off of Airbnb or something? Yeah, definitely. If you're not a good host, if you're being mean to people, or if you're lying to people, yeah, definitely you can definitely get kicked off very quickly. So this picture, we're all working on it, right? This picture doesn't live on my computer, it doesn't live on your computer. It actually lives in the cloud. And this is a special feature that only cloud computing can do. All right. So I like how everyone's kind of drawing randomly, but let's try to like organize our efforts. Let's try to start off with like a rainbow cake. Does Airbnb have competitors? Yeah, there's definitely competitors. All right, can we, as a group, try to make this rainbow cake? I want to start seeing some layers show up in our picture. We got purple on top, then orange, a little bit of yellow underneath that, green. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Quota exceeded. Oh, guys, you drew the picture way too quickly. The quota got exceeded. Oh, no. Well, this was the first time we tried this app. with so many people. And it looks like you guys did a great job. Well, I apologize for the quota being exceeded. I'm not going to try to increase the quota right now in front of everybody because I don't think I'll do a very good job, and I think it'll be kind of boring. Actually, it might be a little bit interesting. I can show you around. So this is what cloud computing looks like. So this is the database that has all our informations. Uh-oh, I'm over my daily usage. Yep, it uses Google Cloud and Firebase. Thank you, Alex, for making the cake for us. I don't have permissions. Well, so no worries. This is not something I was expecting, but in hindsight, it should have been obvious. This is one example of security. It would have been really, really bad if someone found my app and started using it a bunch. Because to make this app work, I'm using a bunch of computers, and those computers cost money. And the reason why there's a quota is because if people use the computer too much, it's going to cost me lots and lots of money. So by putting a quota there, it makes sure that I don't see any surprises on my bill. Yeah. Um, well, next time I'll know better. I'll increase the quota. Um, the main idea is that we all got to briefly work together on a picture, and the reason we could do that is because of the cloud. That picture did not live on our computers; it lived in Google's computers. And this is a great example of the difference between the front end and back end coding. I'm not sure if anyone has ever done this, but if you right click on any any website, there's an option called View Page Stores. And when you open that, you can see all the code that it takes to make this web page. This is all the front end coding. Yep, and also Inspect also does something very interesting. Right click Inspect. You can see all the code running live. Like, let's see the save button. Right here, we have this thing called Canvas. We have a save button there. Is there at least one Airbnb place in every country? Unfortunately not, because Airbnb is a US company. There's some countries like North Korea and Iraq in particular, and Iran that are a little problematic. Um, no, there's plenty in Russia. Russia is a good country. Um, so yeah, this is a great example of this is front end code, and all this is back end code. If I had a quota, if my quota was not exhausted, you would be able to see it. But take it from me, it's there. All right, final question. Where else is a cloud used? What other companies use it? Netflix, Google, the Sky, J&J. I don't know. Johnson and Johnson. They probably use the cloud actually. Steam definitely uses cloud. Amazon. Netflix is actually really known for using the cloud. I see people have a hankering for drawing. Roblox, yeah, they only exist because of the cloud. For a long time, Salesforce did not use the cloud. They made their own cloud for a long time. Walmart, yep, more and more they're using the cloud. Oracle actually has their own cloud. Prime Video, well, yeah. Prime Video is part of Amazon, and Amazon is a main cloud provider. Minecraft, Netflix. I love how people are drawing. It's a little disruptive, but I'm glad you all are being creative. Microsoft actually owns their own cloud as well. Banana, I'm not familiar with that. Um, all right, oops, that was interesting.
So
My next,
everyone, I want you to stop drawing on the screen, okay? Please stop now and erase what you have done. Thank you. And when you draw, people can see your name. So everyone knows who is drawing on the screen, actually.
yeah, Eric. Coinbase also uses the cloud very much. Well, my follow-up question is like, do you think programming in the cloud is hard? Is it the cloud hard to use? I'm seeing some yeses, half and half. Okay. Yes and no. Yeah, sometimes. I'm seeing a lot of no's, a lot of confidence. I like the confidence. So, like most things in programming, um, it can it can be very hard or it can be very easy, but it's definitely not impossible. All right. Even programming in HTML can be very hard, but it doesn't have to be. Um, Especially if you have very good fundamentals. A lot of times when things get very difficult, it means like maybe there isn't a clear understanding of what the problem is. And that's why it's very important to start kind of from the beginning and make sure you have a really good foundation. Like for example, like starting with Scratch and learning the basics is a really good way. And then like after you're comfortable with Scratch, getting comfortable learning about Python and JavaScript is a great way. And then after that, you can start learning about cloud computing and like it turns out there's all sorts of clouds out there. I mentioned earlier that Oracle has one. Microsoft has one called Azure. Google also has one. And from that, like you can make all sorts of apps. You can make a drawing app. You can make like a chess app. You can make like a first-person shooter. You can make something like Minecraft. Like the cloud is an incredibly powerful tool that's really changed the way we program nowadays. Um, and yeah, you can start learning all about it by uh, checking out Create and Learn. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions?
So there are several things. One, so I wanted to know, does Airbnb have any Airbnbs in micronations?
I believe so. I believe it has some in Fuji, for example.
One in the USA, actually. It's called the Republic of Molossia.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, right now they're in the middle of Nevada, and the US hasn't really noticed or doesn't care.
Mike, can you give us an example of one of your rivals? Like, give us an example of some of your rivals, like your enemies.
I think probably the biggest rival is normal hotels. Um, a lot of people don't want. Um, some people just want to go somewhere where they get exactly what they expect they're going to get. So I would say hotels are probably the biggest rival.
So what did they use before the crowd was open? Like what before crowd was made?
That's an excellent question. Life was much harder. What people had to do, they had to physically buy computers, thousands of computers, and they had to hire whole teams, like hundreds of people, to set up these computers and manage these computers. And honestly, it was hit or miss. Some sites just went down. They couldn't like if suddenly a site became very popular and they only owned 100 computers, they couldn't they couldn't grow very quickly. So their site just went down, and the internet wasn't as robust back then.
What benefits, what coding languages do you really work with in Airbnb?
Personally, I've used a lot of Java at Airbnb, a good amount of this programming language called Go, and a little bit of JavaScript as well, and Ruby, of course.
Any React.js?
Yeah, so I personally do not use React.js, but there are hundreds of people that are using React.js on a daily basis at Airbnb.
Thank you.
Cool. I'm glad you guys know these languages. Next person is Anasha. Go ahead, Anasha.
Does Zoom use cloud?
Yes, they do. Every time, you know how you can record a Zoom or record the audio or video, that oftentimes can be copied into the cloud. Also, our chat, all those are being sent to the cloud, and then they're sending it to, like, if I send a chat, it's first going to be sent to Zoom. Zoom will send it to the cloud, and the cloud will send it to everybody else.
Okay, very cool. Next one is Ethan. Go ahead and ask your question, Ethan.
Who founded Airbnb?
There were three. So who founded Airbnb? There were three founders. Brian Chesky was one of them. Nathan was the other person. I'm forgetting his last name, and that is a great question that I'm gonna have to look up. But they were all friends in college. They went to this design school. Oops. They went to this design school and they met each other. And there was this design conference that was happening. Um, and they were all like, wow, there's nowhere to stay in this design because all this design conference was so popular that all the hotels were taken up. And it's like that really is unfortunate for people who are trying to visit. Um, but we have an air mattress that we can give somebody. So why don't we go ahead and do that? So they went on, they made their own website and they said, hey, if anyone's interested, if anyone's going to the design conference, like we have a place that you can stay, just let us know. And someone contacted them and it worked out.
When was Airbnb made?
It was
When was Airbnb made?
it was created I want to say 2009, I believe.
Oh, actually, I found out. It's August 2008. It says right the page.
Very good. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for looking that up for me.
Okay, we're gonna have 3 more people asking questions. Let's see, the next person is Clara. Go ahead, Clara.
Have you ever been on an Airbnb, and what's your favorite one?
Oh yeah, I've been on several Airbnbs. My favorite one so far has been I went to Iceland for a while, and it was I wouldn't quite call it a mansion, but it was a very very nice house. It had even had like a swimming pool indoors that was heated, um, and yeah, it had like a separate room for everybody, and it was really nice.
Very cool. Next one is Jackie. Jackie, go ahead and ask your question.
Yes. So are you the other teacher for the cloud computing class?
Yes, that's one of the classes I teach.
Oh,
Okay. All right. So last but not least, we have Neha or Neha. Go ahead and ask your question.
How do the computers work? The Airbnb computers?
Well, that's a tough question because there's a lot of different types of computers that Airbnb uses. Some of the computers are very specialized for making our AI work correctly. Some of them are really specialized for making our website work correctly. Um, what makes them different is some of them have a lot of special types of computer chips on them. And we upload code to these computers to make sure they use those chips correctly.
Oh,
All right. Well, thank you everyone for the great question. Now I have one more question for you guys. I want you to type in the chat and tell us 1 or 2 things that you learned today. What did you learn today? It can be about technologies, can it be about Airbnb business, a lot of features in Airbnb. Airbnb is better than any other hotel. I think Javi, you did a great advertising for Airbnb.
Yeah, there's
Front
cool
end.
places out there.
Yeah, front end and back end programming. That's cool. Cloud is awesome one. Yeah, it's such a powerful thing. As Javi was saying, that once you have learned some basic programming and then Python or HTML and all that, you can actually start learning about cloud, and that's really makes you be able to build something that it's very easy for other people to use. Okay, very cool. Well, lots of great learnings. With that, let me show you guys quickly of we're going to wrap up today, and then this is an event I mentioned about earlier. We have someone from Google come. I know he probably has Google for over 15 years. I know him for a long time. And come talk about the stories of Google Maps, and how they're being used by different people. Again, it's one of those things that just like Airbnb has so many more things than what you could actually see on the surface. With that, I want to thank Javi again for being here today and give an excellent talk. Why don't we give Javi a great reaction for such an awesome talk? Thank you so much, Javi.
Well, happy to be here. Thank you.
All right. With that, I think we're going to finish up. I hope to see you guys next time.